Ahoy there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and we be talking like pirates today. Yeah, I can't do that for very long. I actually suck at pirate voices. Um, but if you're good at pirate voices, then this video is going to be for you because I'm going to be talking about the Freeport Companion and actually the entire Freeport Kickstarter campaign that was done a few years back for Shadow of the Demon Lord. I've been meaning to do a video about this for the longest time because this is a series of supplements for Shadow of the Demon Lord that are just a fantastic addition to the game, especially if you are wanting to do a seafaring pirate type, Pirates of the Caribbean type of campaign. This campaign is for you. All right, so a few years back, Schwab Entertainment did a Kickstarter for the Freeport Companion. And this book was designed to bring Freeport into Shadow of the Demon Lord. Now, what is Freeport? Well, Freeport was originally supposed to be a standalone campaign setting that could be plugged into pretty much any campaign. I believe that it was created by by Green Ronin, although I could be wrong about that. But an independent RPG producer originally created Freeport, and it was created originally as a three module adventure. And then from there, it just kind of expanded out because the adventure became pretty popular. And then it just kind of exploded from there and became a series of supplements. So the original Freeport came out back in the 3rd edition to 3.5 edition era of D&D. And it was created for that version of D&D. But ever since then, it has evolved. And new editions have come out or new versions of Freeport have come out for the various new editions of D&D, including Pathfinder. Now, I don't know if it's branched out into other games such as 13th Age, but I do know that there are Pathfinder versions. So it was made for 3.0 or 3.5. There was a version for 4.0 D&D. There was a version for Pathfinder, 1st edition, I believe, and now for Shadow of the Demon Lord. Now, I actually picked up the original adventure, Death in Freeport, back when it first came out in 3rd edition. And I thought it was okay. I really didn't, think it was all that, but it was fine. I never ran it, but for 3rd edition, I didn't run it, but it was fine. It wasn't until 4th edition D&D that I was actually doing a campaign that I can't talk today. It's early. A campaign that was centered around a series of islands. So I decided to use the Freeport adventure, Death in Freeport, as the starting adventure. And I was running 4th edition at the time, and it worked out pretty well. I mean, it was a good adventure, and I think my players had a lot of fun. I didn't actually use the other 2 adventures, which are Terror in Freeport and then Madness in Freeport, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But excuse me, I gotta get comfy here. But the the adventure was fun. I mean, it's not only a pirate-themed island seafaring type setting, but it also is very seeped in Lovecraftian lore. You can see up here in the Freeport Companion book for Shadow of the Demon Lord the symbol, which is a mashup of the Shadow of the Demon Lord symbol and the yellow sign, which is very much associated with Lovecraftian lore, although I don't think the King in Yellow is actually a Lovecraft creation. It might have been one of his colleagues that like to share his world. But the King in Yellow is, definitely associated with Lovecraftian horror. And so this campaign kind of mashes those two genres together. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting campaign. It's just, I think a great setting. And I would love to do a full campaign someday with this. And the Schwalbe Entertainment gave you everything that you need, gave us everything that we need to do this Freeport campaign right. So let's just go through all the stuff. The first and biggest product of the Kickstarter that was done for Freeport is the Freeport Companion. Now the Freeport Companion PDF I got with my Kickstarter, but I also got the, if I can get my cord's not long enough, get my books over here, my physical books. Here we go. This is the actual book that came out, and I've got the PDF as well, but the actual book is 127 pages in length, and it provides a ton of information. I gotta get comfortable again. It provides a ton of information for running a campaign. You could run a campaign basically just with the Freeport Companion book. So let's just kind of go through it. And this is not going to be an in-depth review of this book. I'm just kind of going to touch on the just kind of basically go through it, touch on the highlights, and you can pick up the book if you want to do a deep dive. All right, so lots of writers and contributors to this product, as you can see here on the introduction page. The usual cast of illustrators involved in this, and cartographers as well. Yeah, it says right here, Chris Primus and everyone at Green Ronin. So Green Ronin was the company that originally created the setting. All right, so let's go ahead and move on into the product. Now, the table of contents shows you all the details. So the first section has to do with creating characters for this campaign, for Shadow of the Demon Lord. Second section has to deal with equipment. Third section has to do with adventures. The fourth section has to do with people. So this has NPCs and quite a long list of named NPCs. And that's the thing about the Freeport campaign settings. That's what kind of sets it apart from other similar type products, is that there is an entire cast of characters that's associated with this campaign setting. And you could almost film a TV series based on this. In fact, that would be awesome. If anybody out there has any connections to to Hollywood or Amazon or whatever, tell them to jump on Freeport, because this would be a fantastic HBO series or Amazon series, or this is very, very much Game of Thrones-ish, and very dark, and lots. This is ripe ripe with opportunity for the small screen. But anyway, the cast of characters continues on to the next page. So there's just a bunch of named NPCs, and I'm not going to go through them all, but just all kinds of named NPCs, which again you can bring into the campaign as you need to fill whatever niche you need to fill in your specific campaign. All of these are fleshed out to some degree, more or less. So easy to read them and just kind of plop them where you need them in the campaign. So if you're doing a pirate's ball or something like that, there's plenty of those types of NPCs in here that you can drag and drop into that type of encounter. Then we've got the chapter 5, which is the bestiary. Lots of monsters specific to the setting. And then we have chapter 6, which is an adventure. All right, so let's just go ahead and take a look at the first chapter. The first chapter is characters, and this is where we are introduced to the Undine. This is an elemental ancestry. We were already introduced to a couple of other elemental ancestries in previous products. So this one brings in the water elemental ancestry, the Undine, which kind of looks like, if you look at the picture here, kind of, looks like a fish person, which, you would imagine. Again, very Lovecraftian. And it also talks about the ancestries, the rest of the ancestries in Shadow of the Demon Lord that might fit well, or maybe doesn't fit so well in this campaign setting. So, you've got humans, dwarfs. It says here have a small but growing population. Elves. And it talks a little bit about half-elves and half-orcs down here. So it says The Pirate's Guide to Freeport, which is another supplement that came out, not for Shadow of the Demon Lord, but for, I think Green Ronin put it out, just kind of as a standalone supplement. And I'm not sure if I have that. I might have that. Probably over there in my library somewhere. But anyway, it those other adventures feature half-elves and half-orcs. And so this kind of talks about how those don't exist in this campaign setting on for Shadow of the Demon Lord. So the best way to handle half-elves is to assume that they're humans with traces of fairy blood in their veins, and then half-orcs are simply orcs who look more human than do their other kin. Okay. And we got gnomes. There are gnomes. I'm not a fan of gnomes. But there are gnomes in the setting. Goblins are tolerated in Freeport. There are halflings in Freeport. There are orcs in Freeport. Freeport does prohibit slavery. So, the orcs see it kind of as a refuge. So you'll find a good number of orcs there. Salamanders, which is the fire elemental type of creature, can be found here as well. So, and then it talks about the rare ancestry. So it's not a whole lot of clockworks. Being on an island or on a boat just doesn't mesh well with having a metal body. So there's not a whole lot of clockworks. Other fairies, they're rare. Fauns, you're not going to find a whole lot of. And undead. Freeporters destroy undead on sight, so revenants and vampires must keep hidden while in the city and wear disguises when they move among the living. So there can be undead. It's just that, they don't tolerate them there. Not that they're tolerated elsewhere, but, there are lots of other places that you can, undead can hide when you're on a continent versus an island. Then you have these serpent people. So serpent people are differentiated here from the lizard folk, which you'll find in the core rule book as a monster type. Serpent people were part of the original campaign setting for Freeport, so it's introduced here as well. And I'll just read it right here. In a land far from rule, perhaps even another world, at a time long ago, when little separated humankind from the animals, stood the powerful empire of Valosa, unmatched in magic and technology, and populated by a race of serpent people who had enslaved all the younger races that dwelled in their lands. The descendants of those people have spread across the world, staying hidden from view and biding their time until the day that they can rise up and reclaim their rightful places, rightful place as masters of the earth. So they are serpent people. They can look a lot like the Yuan-Ti from D&D. You could, if you use physical miniatures, you could probably use those. And plenty of Yuan-Ti tokens if you're using virtual tabletop. But they have various different shapes and sizes some of them have snake heads, some of them have snake appendages, and so they very much fit in the mold of the E1T for D&D. Their lore is different, however, and this goes into the background and their lore, which I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here. Here's a nice little illustration, and it tells you how to create a serpent person. So what do they get? They get dark sight. They have a, let's see, well, it just says teeth, but your teeth count as basic weapons that deal 1d3 damage and have the finesse property. So you always have a weapon with your teeth. And then Curse of Yig. When you gain corruption, you gain insanity of an equal amount. Insanity gained this way cannot be removed except by magic. If you go mad while you have corruption, you take a penalty to intellect equal to half your corruption. If this penalty would reduce your intellect to 5 or lower, you immediately and permanently become a degenerate serpent person and uses statistics in place of your own. The GM then takes control of your character. So you kind of have to watch the Curse of Yig as you play a serpent person. It looks like they can change shape when they get to 4th level. And then it gives you the various tables you can roll on to flesh out your character. Here are the Undines and how to create them. And we have the usual information there. Then we've got a tour of Freeport. So this talks about the actual city and surrounding areas. And it's got a really nice map. Which I forget where it is. Well, the map's in here somewhere, but let's see if I can see it in my book here. Map. I'm the map. Okay, so the map is a little deeper into the book then. So anyway, it talks about the city in great detail. Here's the languages. Well, before we even go there, here's the summary of the various locations. You got the docks, you got Scurvy Town, you got the warehouse district, you have the merchant district, you have the old city, the temple district, Drax End, which is a poor district caught between the temple district and the old city, and the eastern district. Then you have the eastern district and you have Blood Salt. All right, so those are the various districts in Freeport that you can do your adventure throughout. You can do an entire adventure just in the city of Freeport. It's that there's that much information here. But if you're going to do a Freeport adventure, you got to get out on the ocean. You got to visit the surrounding islands, and you got to do the seafaring thing. All right, Freeport characters talks about the languages that you can encounter here. Azuran is another name for fire speak, the hissing, crackling language of the salamanders. Naval code, semaphore, tide tongue, which is the language of the Undines, and Velosan, which is the language of these serpent people. Then it goes into the various districts in detail. Lots of tables, you can flesh it out. Then it talks about the religion. So religion in Freeport kind of diverges a little bit from the other religions in Shadow of the Demon Lord, but not really, because Shadow of the Demon Lord has a lot of religions in it. If you pick up the religious book, which the name eludes me right off the top of my head, because I'm terrible with Uncertain Faith. Yeah. So if you pick up Uncertain Faith, you'll see that there's tons of religions already on Earth. This just adds to that. So in Freeport, they worship, various gods, which they refer to as the god of knowledge, god of luck, god of murder, god of pirates, god of retribution, god of the sea. The reason for these vague titles is because, again, Freeport was designed to, just kind of plop into any campaign settings. So on Earth, the god of knowledge is the seer. God of luck is Revel. The god of murder is the devil. The god of pirates is One-Eyed Pete. So One-Eyed Pete is a a god that is worshipped by or venerated by people that live out in the ocean or travel the oceans. The god of retribution is the new god. The god of the sea is Oceanus. The god of warriors are the dark gods. The unspeakable one is the demon lord. Yig Hithkai, that's a new one. And Yig Skethvi, yeah, really, is a new one as well. And then it talks about the various traditions that are associated with those gods in case you decide you want to create a character that that worships them. You got a list of campaign setting specific interesting things that you can roll off of. So what is in here? A monkey's paw, a pet crab, a spot at a bar in Scurvy Town. So you could have cheers in Scurvy Town, and you've got your seat that nobody's allowed to sit in. Barrel of rum, pirate flag. So yeah, a bunch of very pirate themed interesting things. All right, then it talks about the expert paths. You got new ones designed specifically for this setting. The celebrant, the courtier, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. The drowned one. This is kind of reminiscent of Game of Thrones again. To be a drowned one, you basically have to have drowned and then come back. Then you got the mariner. And then we go into master paths. We have a monster hunter. We have the musketeer. We've got the mystic navigator. We've got pit fighter, sea captain, survivor. And then we go into magic and the various spells that were created for the setting. And you can see all the usual traditions are represented here. So we'll skip right on past that and get back down into equipment. All right, so the currency used in Freeport is known as the Lords, Skulls, and Pennies. Gold coins are called Lords, silver coins are called Skulls, and coins of copper or brass are called Pennies. We have themed weapons here: a belaying pin, a cutlass, a gaff, a harpy pistol. Talks about since there's black powder weapons like muskets and pistols and such, it talks about the effect of wet powder. Well, actually, let's see here. What does it say wet powder is? Black powder exposed to water loses its utility. Firearms are useless underwater, and they also misfire or refuse to work even if they are merely splashed with water or dampened by humidity. Keeping one's powder dry is not always easy. Johann Krupp, an alchemist living in Freeport, has developed wet powder that is resistant to the effects of moisture. Wet powder is a blend of conventional black powder with fine magnesium fillings. The substance will burn when damped and even underwater, but does not have the explosive force of conventional black powder in ideal conditions. So, there you go. Wet powder is a thing available here. What else we got here? So, weapon enhancements. The following items enhance weapons, either making them more effective or providing additional options. So, you got aiming stock, rummer's modification, and spring-loaded bayonet. Then you've got special substances and items, things such as abyss dust, assassin's quill, atomizer, cadaver parts, captain's grog, devil wicks, ship's clock, tallow tack. So lots of interesting things that you can add. Implements. Freeport's markets offer oddities from all over the world. Among the most prized and valuable are those that have been carried to the city from faraway places. So you have the abacus of rapid calculation, or armillary sphere, bosun's whistle of piping, You have various services that are good for this type of setting: docking fees, messenger service, prostitution, rickshaw rides, and ship's passage. Then it goes into war machines. No stranger to war, Freeport has had to defend. Well, even before that, I'm sorry, and back up a little bit. Talks about the various vessels. If you want to purchase a vessel, it goes into the various types here: barges, caravels, cogs, galleons, great ships, and so on. War machines, then you can purchase a ballista, a bombard, a cannon light, cannon heavy, a catapult, and swivel gun. Then we go into the various types of adventures you can have in this type of setting. You have aquatic adventure, which is something that would involve, you would think, swimming rules. So it talks about swimming rules here. Holding your breath and drowning, hyperthermia, depths and pressure, visibility, underwater, falling and diving. Then it talks about ships and sea voyages. Goes into ship statistics, which this was kind of covered in the Demon Lord's Companion 1, but it goes into a lot of detail here as well, especially for the different ship types that were listed on the on that chart I showed you a moment ago. Talks about the roles on a ship, pilots and captains. Then it talks about nautical movement, rowing, sailing, crew inspiration, wind strength and direction. A lot of information provided here when you have your campaign go actually on board a ship and spend some time out on the sea. Talks about the spotting distance, uncontrolled ships, damaging ships. Of course, you know, you got to have ship-to-ship combat, and this talks about how that can happen. Running aground. Talks about travel time. This is great. Definitely gives you information that you're not going to find easily elsewhere on how fast it takes to get from one place to another aboard a ship. Random voyage events, ship-to-ship combat, special situations such as boarding a moving ship and attached from a moving vehicle. War machines goes into a lot of detail on war machines, and goes into statting out the war machines that was on that chart. Then we get into using the continent, and you don't have to stay in Freeport. You can obviously take, you know, since you have boats available to you, you can definitely go to the continent of Rule and pretty much go anywhere you want to, including to places off the map, which I will get to in a moment. Relics. You got the beam splitter, bile and lashes, denulper, fountain of fortune, reaverbane, all very flavorful relics specific to the campaign. Throne of the Unspeakable One. All right, then we get into people. Now, this one I'm going to just kind of gloss over, but it starts off with just NPCs that you can throw in. So assassins, urchins, cultists, various people you'll find in Freeport: beggars, lobstermen, longshoremen, magicians, mercenaries, pirates, merchants, priests, sailors, the Sea Lord's Guard, the Watch, and then thieves and thugs. And then we get into the various unique characters. So the City of Adventure is home to thousands of people. A few stand out from the rest because of their wicked character or courageous achievements. These individuals might become patrons for player characters, important contacts, or dangerous enemies as you decide. So the next several pages of the book detail all of these various NPCs. Some have more detail than others, but all of them have enough that you can plop into your campaign. So great information here to have a very role-play intensive campaign. So once we get past the character section, then we go into the bestiary, where you'll find such creatures as The Accursed Hand, The Alchemist's Fault, the Blimye, a Brass Monkey, that funky monkey, Burnlings, Chow, Deadwood Tree, and Deep Ones. All right, now we're getting this Lovecraft stuff here. Deep Ones, straight out of Lovecraft, and yeah, basically these are bad folk that live under the water. They're not undines. These are evil creatures that have been twisted by the unspeakable one, and so it goes into the various deep ones here, or at least it gives you the stats for a typical deep one, I should say. Then you got Devil Lizard, Dream Child, Fire Spectre, Kothar the Accursed, Flesh Raker, Flying Lizard, Ghost Eater, Infernal Automation. That thing looks pretty cool. Looks like a walking furnace. Malkin, Monstrous Clam. Of course, you got to have a giant monstrous clam. Monstrous Jellyfish, you definitely need that. Monstrous Leech, I don't know so much about that. Then you got Nereids. These are fairy waterfolk. Pequodals, Pitbriar. Now I got the hiccups. Hold on. Pwog, Reef Eel, Serpent Person, Shadow Serpent, and then you got a Sharkman. So Sharkman is great. Basically a shapeshifter that can shift into the shape of a shark. I actually created a token for a shark person because I wanted to use. I actually had planned on running the Queen of Gold campaign, and I was going to have a shark person in there, but I never got around to running that one. Skin Cloaks, Spirit Lizard, Thanatos, Undine, Vulpine, and you've got the avatar of the unspeakable one, Exeval. Is how I'm going to pronounce that. Sounds pretty cool. Exeval. And that fleshes out the bestiary. I'm not sure if there's a giant whale in here. I feel like there should be a giant whale. Maybe there is. It's just called something funky. What is this? Thanatos is a horrific abomination of the deepest waters. The Thanatos exists between life and death. Its bony head looks eerily like a monstrous skull. Its eyes are pearly white. Great rents and tears in the scales. The creature glows with an unnatural greenish-white light in its mouth full of long, jagged teeth. So that kind of sounds like a... what's that? What's that fish in the real world that's got the dangly thing? I forget. Anyway, all right. So then we go into Chapter 6, Old Hatreds. This is the adventure that is provided in the book, and I believe that rounds out the Freeport Companion. So that is the main event for this campaign setting from the Kickstarter, but it wasn't the only thing you could get from the Kickstarter. The other things that you could get in the Kickstarter are as follows. The Queen of Gold, which I think I talked about in a previous video. It is an adventure path that takes adventures from the starting tier all the way up to the master tier, and it basically features the machinations of a necromancer that is trying to find his bride, his bride is a golden statue known as Queen of Gold, and a pirate known as Red Sonja? Nah, not Red Sonja. Red something or other. Anyway, this pirate had stolen, and the Red. There we go. The pirate and the Red had stolen the Queen of Gold from the Rudibendius Maul, the necromancer from a faraway land, and the necromancer wants his bride back. So he's basically collected a undead army, or navy I should say, to follow Anne the Red back to Freeport and reclaim his bride. So the whole adventure basically is talking about or following that Anne the Red and unfolding this whole scene. So here's a shark man in the adventure, and there's other creatures in here like Vultureman, and so on. So here's a picture of the Queen of Gold, which is also featured on the cover right there. All right, so anyway, that is the Queen of Gold, Tales of the Pirate Isles. So again, looks like a really interesting adventure. It is kind of set up like Tales of the Demon Lord, in which you've got a bunch of loosely connected adventures that can be standalone adventures, or they can be tied together, but you have to do the work to tie them together. So the theme that's running through the whole campaign is Anne the Red and Rutabendius Maul, and the impending undead army that's sailing towards the Pirate Isles. And so that's the underlying plot. But you have to kind of, as the GM, you kind of have to tie the various independent or individual adventures together to get that story into a cohesive campaign. Now, the reason why it's done that way is because, Shadow of the Demon Lord was originally designed by Rob Schwab to be done in 11 sessions. So he wants quick adventures that you can do in one session, and they highlight in adventures the high points of an adventurer's career. So it's not necessarily a continuous story like a lot of campaigns are. It's like year one, you have this adventure. Later that year, you have another adventure. The next year, you have another adventure. 3 months later, you have another adventure. And these are these highlights are like episodes of a TV series. But again, if you want to make it an ongoing campaign where you start out the starting adventure and it just flows until you get to the level 10 adventure, then you can certainly do that. You just have to work to build that cohesiveness. So that's the Queen of Gold. Then we have the other three adventures. If you don't want to do the Queen of Gold, then you have the original adventures that were created for Freeport. You have Death in Freeport, which was recreated for Shadow of the Demon Lord. Then you have Terror in Freeport. And then you have Madness in Freeport. All three are designed to be a trilogy, so they are linked together. I have not run this trilogy. Again, I did run Death in Freeport in 4th edition D&D, but I have not run it for Shadow of the Demon Lord. So I actually haven't even read through this, so I don't know if there are many differences other than the obvious changes to the game system. But at any rate, all three of these adventures can definitely be a campaign for an adventure path that you can run if you didn't dig the Queen of Gold. Or just, if you just wanted to do the original Death and or the Freeport campaign, then you have it available to you here. All right, so you also got that we also got that in the Kickstarter, and then the other thing other two things that we got in the Kickstarter, the Demon Lord's Companion 2 introduces a lot of new ancestries, some of which are directly associated with Freeport, others not so much. But in this book, you get the Farron, you get the Hamadryad, you get the Molekin, which are mole people. You get the Naga, which is another form of serpent person. You get the Sylph, which is the air elemental. Then you have the Urath, which is kind of like a bug person, similar to the Thri-kreen in D&D. This book also introduces new rules such as story complications, which is an alternate or optional rule that you can include to give your story, well, complications and your characters' complications. You have group themes, which is interesting, something to tie your group together. Are they bold explorers? Are they embattled survivors? Are they murderous gangsters? Are they sworn defenders? These are different themes, and they get benefits for being a part of or having a group theme that the group can draw from. Pretty cool concept. Character paths. You have expert paths such as the Auspex, Silhouette, Wangateer, Ward Scribe. Then you have master paths such as the Cenobite, Fencer, Halberdier, Invoker, Legalist, Metallurgist, Sleuth, and Tormentor. You got new magic traditions, the Invocation, Metal, Order, and Soul traditions. And that rounds out this book. It's not a big book. It's 42 pages long, but, chock full of info and new options for your game. That's what the Molken looks like. That's the Bug Person. It's more like a beetle person, not so much a mantis person like the Thri-kreen are. The Sylph, and then the Naga. I don't see the Hamadryad on here anywhere, or the Farron. Farron's a cat person, incidentally. Okay, so that is the Demon Lord's Companion. And then finally, the World's Edge. I already talked about the World's Edge supplement in a video, a few videos back. But again, this definitely ties into the campaign setting, especially the Queen of Gold adventure, because Rudibendius Maul, the land that he comes from, is featured in this setting book. So if you want to have your campaign, here it is, Mountain of the Necromancer. If you want to take your campaign, take the fight to him, you can certainly do that because he lives right here in Aramea, the Lost Land. So Anne the Red actually sailed here, and that's where she found the Necromancer's lair, stole his bride, and took it back to Freeport. And so Rudibendius Maul is now preparing an undead force to take back his bride and destroy anything that tries to stop him. All right, so anyway, this is a continent unto itself. So you've got, scrublands, ashen wastes. Anyway, you got a lot of stuff here. I already talked about it in another video, so I'm not going to go through it again. But this definitely ties directly into the whole Freeport campaign. Definitely recommend picking it up. Now, all these things are available on Drive-Thru RPG. I recommend if you're going to do a Freeport campaign, you really kind of need to get all of them. I'm just saying, I'm a completist. You don't need all of them. You only really need the Freeport Companion, but I would just recommend getting all of them because they're all great, and all of them have things that you can throw into your campaign. If it's not a location, it's a creature, or it's a story, or an adventure. All of the stuff has value. So I would definitely highly recommend picking up every single one of these books. And I believe you can get pretty much all of them print on demand. I only have the Freeport Companion, World's Edge, and the Demon Lord's Companion, and Death in Freeport, and Queen of Gold. I've got most of them printed out. So I believe that you can get all of them pretty much print on demand. All right, so that's it. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope this has been useful. If you are looking to do this type of campaign, again, this is the perfect setting to do it in Shadow of the Demon Lord. It's chock full of Demon Lord stuff, chock full of Freeport stuff, chock full of Lovecraftian stuff. You can't go wrong with this setting. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my video, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Hail to the Demon Lord and the Unspeakable One. All right, how do I turn this damn thing off?